Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the webinar on networking in a COVID world. We're going to give everyone a chance to get here and log in, so you can start by grabbing your water or coffee, and we'll just begin in just a minute. During the webinar today, we'll be conducting a poll to get an idea about how our attendees' current networking efforts are. So please take part in it so that our speaker, Bob Rogers, can see how best to help you and we can learn a bit about each other. So just waiting to see, we have about 11 participants right now. Just hold off for just a few more seconds. Okay, so if everyone is logged in and comfortable, we shall begin. Welcome to our session on networking, how to stay connected in a COVID world at the Small Business Development Center at CBP, a sponsored program of the Mason Enterprise Center at George Mason University. My name is MJ. I'm here to get the webinar started. To cut down on background noise, please use good virtual meeting etiquette and try to keep your microphones muted so that everyone can hear the presentation. However, if you have a question at any point during the meeting, you can type your question in the Q&A box and we will periodically present your question to Bob when there's a pause in the presentation. We'll stop throughout the presentation to answer questions, but it might not be right away. So please type your questions with enough context so that the instructor can follow up afterward as needed, if we don't get them addressed during class. Okay, so now we wanted to learn more about our audience today. And to do so, we're going to take a quick poll. Please select a response from the options provided on your screen. So the first question is, how long have you been in business? 6 months or less, a year or less, 2 years or less, or 2 or more years? How many employees do you have, including part-time? 1 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 to 10, or 10 or more? The other question is, do you use social media to communicate with your target audience? And when was the last time you updated your website? Maybe less than 2 years ago or less than 5 years ago? Or maybe you haven't updated your website. And the last question is, how many in-person or virtual events did you attend in 2021? So it looked like almost everybody's participated. We'll just give a few more seconds for everybody to complete their responses. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. I'll share the results here. So it looks like most everybody has been in business for 2 or more years. Some 67% have 1 to 2 employees and 33% have 10 or more employees. In terms of using social media to communicate with your target audience, it was split 50-50, yes and no. The last time people have updated their website, 67% said less than 2 years ago, and 33% said they haven't updated their website. And then in terms of virtual events that were attended in 2021, 17% did not attend any, 50% attended 1 to 4, 17% attended 5 to 10, and then 17% attended more than 10. Okay, I'll close that up. Well, thank you for taking part in the poll. Lastly, at the very end of our session today, when you sign off into your browser, there will be a special drawing to receive a free group counseling on what we reviewed today. A handful of clients will be selected, and so if you're interested, simply fill out the group counseling evaluation form and you'll automatically enter your name. And now I'm going to introduce our speaker, Bob Rogers. Bob started and ran a government contracting business for 30 years, which he sold in 2015. He was number 250 of Inc. magazine's top 500 rankings of the fastest growing privately held companies in the United States. He's won over $100 million in government contracts, and WSI Digital Solutions is his 5th business. He has a BS in engineering, from the United States Air Force Academy, an MBA from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, and is an OPM graduate of Harvard Business School. He was also the Dean of Business for Stratford University and an adjunct professor at Northern Virginia Community College. And you can get more advice and tips on social selling and digital marketing by following Bob's company page on LinkedIn. And I'll share those links and contact information in the chat. Bob will be speaking today until 2 p.m., and I'll turn it over to him now.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you, MJ, for that wonderful introduction. Welcome to Mr. Rogers' Digital Neighborhood. As MJ said, I'm Bob Rogers, and we're going to be talking about networking today and how you can reach your target market. First, I want to express my appreciation to the Virginia SBDC, Small Business Development Center, and its director, Vijay Vaswani, for the opportunity to speak to you today. Please put your questions, as MJ said, in the Q&A box, not the chat, and I will answer them throughout the presentation. So I'll be stopping periodically to answer all your questions. Next slide, please. So what's the best way to approach a networking? As you can see from the slide, we'll answer this question, what is the best way? Then I'll discuss why networking should be a part of the business strategy. Then we'll discuss the 5 keys to successful networking. In general, you want to practice the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. In other words, you want to be genuine with the people who you connect with. Share helpful information with them and try to help them make connections to others in your network who might be able to help them. But be open, be honest, and most of all, be helpful. Remember, you don't need to be an extrovert to be a networker. That's what we're going to talk about on the next slide. So, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Well, how about this? Have you ever been at a networking event with a room full of noisy people talking, laughing, and having an enjoyable time? And since you don't know many people there, you feel lost, out of place, can't wait for this event to be over? If you have these feelings, you're not alone. Chances are you're like me and you're an introvert. Being an introvert doesn't mean that we don't know how to network. It means that we network in different ways. More importantly, it takes skill to become a good networker, even if you are an extrovert. For example, the ability to laugh, talk loudly in a crowded room full of people isn't necessarily networking. However, researching and preparing for your networking event, having a prepared script with talking points for people when you meet them, that's more what you need to do to be a good networker. Moreover, it's not about the number of people that you meet and the number of business cards you hand out. It's about the number of genuine connections that you can potentially make in long-term relationships. So the bottom line is, extroverts do not have any advantage over introverts when it comes to networking. So next slide tells us why networking is important. As a business owner or a nonprofit principal, you have many jobs, but you only have one responsibility. Get whatever resources your entity needs to be successful. With a limited amount of time, how can you accomplish this? Well, networking is your answer. Let me give you some reasons. First, every company needs financing, equipment, the necessities to run a business. Knowing who to contact to get these resources is very important to an entrepreneur. Second, it helps to generate customers and leads for contracts. People do business with people that they like and enjoy, even in the government contracting. However, digital marketing has turned lead generation into a science. More and more companies are generating leads digitally than ever before. Third, it helps you identify suppliers, partners, employees. Talent acquisition must be in every company's core competence during this great resignation period. And finally, it increases your visibility in your profession or your local community. If you're visible, you win more contracts, and you participate in more boards, you're asked to speak, and we'll discuss all of these forms in a second. So let's talk specifically in the next slide about the 5 keys. So the 5 keys are Determine who your target audience is, identify which events to attend, use the best practices of networking in an event, and develop an excellent networking pitch. Stay connected to your network through social media. Hang on a second, guys. Let me see if I can quiet this noise in the background. All right. So please note that developing an excellent networking pitch is essential. A well-done pitch incorporates all the topics in this webinar. Our 3-session workshops after this webinar will show you in particular how to create a pitch, or one of the workshops. So the first thing is on the next slide, your target audience. So your target audience is a combination of two things: your market niche and your buyer persona. So on the next slide, let's talk about finding your market niche. So finding your niche is about narrowing your customer base. Notice the little figurine here has 3 paths to choose. Many early stage entrepreneurs try to go down too many directions at one time. Successful entrepreneurs, on the other hand, narrow the course and focus on a market subset. Many of them do this with market research. Secondary research is done with using the internet, and primary research is done with direct surveys. The main purpose is to differentiate yourself from your competitors. Try to avoid crowded markets. If you find yourself in a crowded market, you're probably competing on price. That's a lose-lose proposition. In the next slide, we talk about buyer personas. Now, your buyer persona, you may not have heard this term before, but it's very, very important, particularly if you're going to do digital marketing. Buyer persona is a fictional representation of an ideal customer. I prepared this picture of a woman and her son for a digital marketing seminar that I do for the Puerto Rican business community. It's not business community, Puerto Rican businesses in Puerto Rico, but the concepts apply universally. In this case, I use the example of a children's clothing store in San Juan, Puerto Rico. The owner should develop a buyer persona by asking critical questions about their ideal customer. Mothers are the ones who buy clothes for their children. Therefore, where does she work? How much does she spend per child on clothes? Does she have more than one child? And more importantly, where does she go on the internet to look for children's clothes? That's where you should be with your internet content. So I've covered a lot in a pretty short period of time. And if there are any questions that we want to talk about now, please, MJ, let me know.
Okay, none at this time, Bob.
Okay, so we're moving on. Next slide. Okay, so first thing is we need to identify the events and conferences we want to attend. Let me pause to thank you for attending this online training session. There are many events and only a limited amount of time that you can participate in various activities. And so after the pandemic hit, as you well know, we're all deluged with requests to participate in webinars every day. You could have chosen many options to spend your time, but you decided to be with us. And on behalf of the SBDC, I want to thank you for that. Okay, so as we just discussed, choosing events where your target audience meets. For example, if you're a flower shop, say in Springfield, Virginia, and you want to attend events with your local you want to attend events with your local chamber of commerce. You also want to be active in the local chapter of the Society of the American Florists. Now, I am going to put a link in the chat here of an entrepreneur. It's actually a link on the local, on the national chapter of the American Floral Society. And there's an entrepreneur who has a video, and she tells you all of the reasons why she is involved with the National Florist Association and the local chapter. And I encourage you to look at that after the presentation. All right, so consider limiting the number of groups you join to concentrate on 2 or 3 organizations. I suggest you pick 1 or 2 organizations from the following 3 areas: trade associations, business groups, and community-based organizations. We've already discussed the first 2, But community-based organizations is really a special case. Many entrepreneurs make the mistake of thinking that they do not have enough time to volunteer for these organizations. My experience is that I have met the best mentors, investors, and business partners while serving on boards of nonprofit. Most community-based organizations are eager to accept you as one of their leaders. You'll often find that the same people who volunteer their time to be involved with nonprofits are also the same people that are in your trade associations and other groups that you join. So let me give you my example on the next slide, what I was been involved with. So here's my profile in 2015. You heard MJ said that I sold a government contracting business after running it for 35 years in 2015. So at this point, this is what I look like. I belong to 3 trade associations, but I was only active. This is on the far right of your slide, but I was really only active in one of them, the Small Emerging Contract Advisory Forum, CCAF. I attended training sessions at the PSC, which is the Professional Services Council, and AFCEO, which is the Armed Forces Communication Electronics Association. I was involved with the Northern Virginia Chamber for many, many, many years, and I was also in the Government Contracting Committee. But I served on the board of directors for 4 years earlier in my career, so I was very familiar with and active in that organization. Now, flipping back over on the left side, on the community-based organizations, just too numerous to put down there. But as of 2015, I had pared them down to 2, Leadership Fairfax and Community Business Partnership. I was serving as a treasurer on my second 4-year term on the board for Leadership Fairfax. And lastly, I was on the CVP board, transitioning to Chairman Emeritus, which is my current status today. The CVP is CVP stands obviously for the Community Business Partnership. It's a beautiful organization. It's helped many businesses over the years. I'm very proud to say that I was one of the founding members of this organization. These are 2 takeaways. Here are 2 takeaways I want you to get from these slides. Because I volunteered in so many organizations, I became visible as a community leader. And second, because of the types of people who belong to these organizations, I had a network of people I could call at any time to pretty much get anything I needed. It didn't happen overnight. It took years and years to do this, but that's what will happen if you spend enough time networking properly. Okay, so let's look at some templates. So if you're going to join organizations, I've developed a template here for something for you to consider. On the left-hand side are the 3 main organizations proposed in the criteria. Trade associations are an excellent place to learn best practices through training. Potential employees are there. Critical hires usually belong to these organizations. You'll also find your competitors, who are some of your best sources of teaming partners. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to be around my competitors, don't want my competitors to know what I want to do. Well, actually, you do. You really want to be around your competitors. You really want to know what they're doing. And most importantly, they have more in common with you than anybody else. They pretty much do the same things in life that you do. The Chamber of Commerce generally covers a geographic area and has in it your potential customers. And community-based organizations allow you to give back to causes that matter to you. The emphasis is on the word causes that matter to you. Just don't volunteer for something because you think you're getting on that board makes you prestigious or makes you look good. I've seen a lot of that in my career. And if your heart's not in it, it's going to show. So whenever you contribute to these organizations, understand this. You'll get many times back in rewards than you do when you're giving. All right, so let me pause again, see if there's any questions, MJ.
No questions at this time.
Okay, so we got a pretty smart crowd out there. It's absorbing it all, huh? Okay, so next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the mechanics of networking. So there are, since COVID has hit, the science of networking has really becoming or the art of networking has really become a science. That's what I meant to say. Now, there are all kinds of opportunities in network, but I've chosen the following two types to discuss with you today. In-person, virtual/hybrid, and in addition, I've included a section on how to write an elevator pitch once you find yourself inside an in-person networking event. Okay, so next slide. So I got a lot of this information from a lady called Devora Zach, and she wrote a book, a great book, and I'm going to put a blog on her book that she wrote about it in the chat. And the name of the book is called, hang on guys, I can't do two things at one thing, two things at one time. Let me do that. Okay. She wrote actually two editions of the same book. It's called Networking for People Who Hate Networking. How about that? Her book does a great job of breaking down how people prepare for and engage in in-person networking. She suggests what I call, and these are my terms. Some are is what I call prep, percolate, and pitch. Okay, let's take one at a time. Prep. One of the best things you can do to ensure a successful networking event is to spend some time preparing for it. First, set your goals. Understand why you're attending an event. Set modest goals, such as adding 2 new contacts to your target network. Pre-register early. You'll be less likely to back out, particularly if you paid money to attend. Also, registration fees often increase at the door. Volunteer. Ask organizers if you can play a role in some capacity. You'll get to know the organizers, and if you're on the registration desk, when everybody comes in, you'll get to meet everybody when they come in, and you won't have to be running around chasing them down. They'll all be standing in front of you. Now, attire is always something we could spend a whole training session on this, but most events anyway are business casual. However, a few tips. If your feet are going to hurt when you wear new shoes or platform heels, are your contacts going to, eye contacts going to dry out because you don't want to wear glasses? And that snappy jacket that you brought before the pre-pandemic, is it a little too smug these days? The short answer is look sharp, but be comfortable. Okay. Now, here's another tip. Go with a pal. Attending with someone else can make the experience much more enjoyable. If you take turns venturing out, meeting people, and then comparing notes on who said what to whom, it actually makes it enjoyable. However, if you attend with a friend, stand in the corner and spend the entire time talking with them, you pretty much haven't accomplished anything at all. All right, so that's the prep section. So you're there. So we're now going to percolate. So be a target. Make yourself approachable and maintain a pleasant expression. Standing only tables are magnets for introverts to open conversations with participants arriving and leaving at the table. Get in lines. Lines provide an excellent opportunity to open a conversation with somebody standing directly next to you. I use this technique all the time, particularly in a bar line. Since I don't drink, I walk away and look to another line to stand in once I get up to the bar. But I've accomplished my mission by talking to whoever it is I'm standing next to. Pace yourself. Here's something that's really important. I think a lot of people feel they got to get their money's worth and run around all over the place. If you're starting to feel overwhelmed, it's okay to step out of the room, weather permitting, outside as well. Also, it's okay to leave early if you've accomplished your objectives. There's no arrive early and leave early police. No one's going to give you a ticket for that. Now, here's my own personal, and Devorah didn't come up with this one. I came up with this one. Eat before the event. I've been to hundreds of networking events, and probably some of you maybe have as well. But I don't know about you, but I can't hold a drink, hold a plate of hors d'oeuvres, shake hands, and exchange business cards all at the same time. So when I attend an event, it's all about the networking. Even during a dinner event, when everybody else is seated and eating, I'm up and I have a clear view of everybody in the room. And I'm walking around and I'm looking for people I know or want to get to know, or even better, people who see me and say, "Hey, Bob, how you doing?" And then we have a conversation. So that's just me. Maybe you want to partake in the drink and the hors d'oeuvres. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't mean to poo-poo any of that, but I'm just telling you my little tip. Now, the pitch. Before you attend the event, the most important thing is for me, is to tell myself to listen more than I talk. You cannot learn if a person you're talking to is an excellent candidate in your network if you're talking. Try to ask questions as a method to keep the conversation going. When it's your turn to speak, go into your elevator pitch, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, next slide. So, virtual networking. Virtual networking is here and it's been here for a while, but with the pandemic, it has really exploded. So as everyone knows on this webinar, virtual networking is a process for developing social and professional connections online. Virtual networking is not a replacement for in-person networking. The best networkers, are the ones who use both methods to connect with their target audience. Let me give you some advantages of virtual networking. First of all, you can do it at any time. You can network online through video sessions, audio sessions, or asynchronously through social media or email. You can do these forms of communication at any time. And there are no geographic barriers. That's the sweet thing about it. Start with the people you know. If you're just starting out and trying to build up a database, start with the folks that you already know online. If you have connections with them, try to get them to connect you with people who they know. Now, many people who have established relationships don't bother to stay in touch. That's really, they're always trying to look for the next person. But make sure you regularly stay in touch with the original network you have. I have close to 4,000 contacts on my CRM, my customer relationship management database. However, I've segmented them into 3 categories: clients, influencers, and government contractors. I send out 3 different emails to each group monthly. I reach out to my influencers on the phone or call them or send them an email quarterly. However, my clients, I meet with them every month. I make sure I track them down and hear their voice. And now that we're going to be able to get back in person, maybe I'll be able to talk to them. But I make sure that we connect either over the phone or over video every month. Stay close to your customers. Join virtual groups. Try to find groups online that share your professional interests or passions. These groups are great for meeting new people, sharing relevant information, and giving you a sense of belonging. Providing information or other contacts to your network. This is the best way to network. I belong to something called the Government Marketing University's Ideation Group. We are an informal group of marketing professionals in the government contracting space. We either give presentations on topics of interest or invite speakers in our virtual meetings to give presentations. Most of my government contracting marketing contacts actually come from this group. And lastly, be patient. As the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. It takes weeks, sometimes months, even years to develop a good network of people who you can reach out to for help and information at any time. So when networking, think more like a tortoise instead of like a hare. All right. Once again, I'm going to stop and see if anybody has any questions.
No questions have come in yet, Bob.
Okay. I guess all 11 of you are tuned in, dialed in, got everything under control here. So don't feel shy, don't feel bashful about asking. I've got plenty of time in this presentation. Okay, so let's pivot over to the elevator pitch. I promised you that I would tell you, we would talk about that. So let's look at my elevator pitch. I say, and excuse me for turning my head because it's over here on the screen. I say, hi, my name is Bob Rogers. I'm a digital marketing consultant. My business provides digital marketing services to make customers visible on the internet. And then I stop. I pause. I pause on purpose. I want to see what the reaction is of the person or persons who are standing in front of me. If I've done this right, I'll get a response like, oh yeah? Who do you do it with? Or what kind of digital marketing do you do? Or how long have you been doing this? Or any kind of response whatsoever. And now, instead of having a monologue where I am standing up and going off for 5 minutes, touting my credentials, accomplishments, number of people working for me, and everything else in the world, I now have a conversation where I've hopefully gotten somebody to get interested in myself and what I'm doing. So that's when I use my customers are small businesses. I start with that. Specifically, I cater to government contractors who are in the professional services space. And my main objective is to use websites, social media, SEO, email, and other digital marketing tools to make my customers visible on the internet. So that's my pitch. That's my elevator pitch. All right, so let's break it down in template form so we can see how I developed it. Next slide. All right, so you can see there are questions here. The first statement before the pause of the two questions are, who are you and what is the opportunity or value proposition? So, it's pretty easy to answer the first one, your name, your title, and the name of your business, okay? However, answering this second question is a lot more subtle. Please note that I do not answer the question, what I do. I answer what it is I do for my clients. In other words, I lead with the value I bring to my clients after they have engaged me for my services. Okay, so I say I make my clients visible on the internet. That's what we do. It's embedded in our vision statement. Okay, and every meeting that we meet, my team and I, we go over the vision statement, the mission statement, and the core values. And the visibility statement is a part of the vision statement of my company. And that's what I tell people what I do. I think it's a mistake to discuss what you do, particularly in an opening sentence. All right. And again, you want to pause at this point if you can. If you don't get any reaction and people move on, don't get upset. Be cool. I mean, it's giving ebb and flow of talking. Just make sure that you hang in there, and eventually the conversation should come back to you, and you should have an opportunity to go for a little bit further down the path. So, next slide, please. All right, so I use the pause technique, as I just told you, to entice people to say something. Then If they ask me a follow-up question, again, instead of blurting out what I do, I try to go in and tell them the market niche that I serve. Okay. It's a small business, right? And it's also government contractors in the professional service niche. So it narrows it down. So if I'm standing in front of somebody who is another government contractor or a possible government employee or someone who's in um, the government space, it will resonate with them. Remember, let's go back to the very beginning. Remember, we talked about choosing the right conferences to be in. If you're in the wrong conferences where you don't have the people who understand your language, and say you're at the at the Springfield Floral Association's networking event and you're a government contractor, well, it's not going to resonate, is it? So you should be where your market niche is and where they understand what you're talking about. So, and then I've designed the elevator pitch to convey my value to my customers. And most early stage businesses, as I said before, make the mistake of trying to sell their products and services right there on the spot. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Let me give you some examples of large businesses that do this extremely well. BMW. BMW doesn't sell cars. They sell ultimate driving machines. That's their value proposition, right? When you buy a BMW, you're looking to be in a fast, good-looking, smooth-running car. It makes a statement about you, and it gives you the experience that buying a BMW makes you, accentuates who you are, okay? Something more simple and basic and down to earth that we all use. If you use Crest toothpaste, you don't brush your teeth, you fight cavities, right? That's what Crest is all about. They're fighting cavities. They have super duper formulas and whiz bang stuff that they could talk to you all day long about how they put that toothpaste together. But the bottom line is you don't care. What you care about is you care about fighting cavities. And so that's why you pick up Crest instead of picking up something else. And that's how Crest has positioned themselves in the market. Closer to home, I'll tell you my dentist, for example, and I don't, God bless him for this. I don't know how he came up with this. He doesn't go by his name, Dr. Kim. He goes by Smile Galleria. That's the name of his dental practice, Smile Galleria. So you don't need to really understand what he can drill and what he can't drill and all the procedures. What you're interested in is that you have a nice smile. And that's what his practice says. That's what his company name says, Smile Galleria. So again, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about what you're selling. It's about your customer's experience when using the products or services. That's what it's all about. So ask yourself, when you put together your elevator pitch, what is the experience you bring to your customers? And that will help you go a long way with a lot of different things. It'll help you with developing possibly a vision statement, a mission statement. It'll help you with the elevator pitch. It'll help you identify your markets. It'll help you be clear about your customers. It'll help you win business. Believe me, I just made a pitch to a customer yesterday, and she wanted to understand, well, when using all this digital marketing stuff, what do I get out of it? And I told her, what you get out of it is visibility. You get the visibility that you don't have right now, because what you are the systems that you have in place are not registering on the internet. So that's my value proposition. But you have to develop your own value proposition, something that's very close to your heart and something you actually can deliver on. Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop it for questions again, and this time I'm gonna take some water.
Okay, Bob. Judy asked a question. She said there are various networking groups on Meetup. Are these groups you would attend?
Are they groups I would attend? They're not groups I would attend, but that doesn't mean they're not groups that you wouldn't attend, Judy. It depends on whether or not your target market hangs out on Meetup. And if it does, then absolutely, that's a great place for you to attend. The government market doesn't really use Meetup, although Meetup is used by a lot of people, and it's a great social networking tool. So if you think you can find customers and or just influencers in your space, your market niche, go for it. I think it's a great idea.
And then another question, how do you determine if a networking group is not good fit or use of time?
How do you determine? That's a very good, actually both questions are really good. It's really good. Let me answer it in two ways. One is, at the time you're in the group, are you accomplishing your objectives? You joined the group for a reason, right? And so you shouldn't just be joining the group because somebody said, hey, this is the group to join. And I get a lot of those when I was back in government ran a government contracting. You need to belong to this, you need to belong to that. There's not enough time for all that. So you had to narrow it down to a few that got to your objectives, right? Now, that's the first thing. The second thing is, and this is really interesting, I showed you a slide of what I looked like in 2015. Well, had I showed you a slide of, 2015, not 2015, yeah, 2015. So if I showed you 2010, it looked different. If I showed you 2005, it looked different than that. Why? Because my company and I evolved over time. So a particular networking group may serve you at this particular time in your development, but later on, maybe you've grown out of it. Maybe it doesn't really fit. Maybe you need to be in a different one to satisfy your needs. And that's what I found myself doing over the course of time, is I moved away from boards and from companies and networking groups and even associates who were important to me in the early stages of my business, but in the latter stages when I needed different kinds of resources and different kinds of people and different kinds of information, I had to pivot and make those adjustments. So hopefully I've answered your both those questions. I'm going to move on here.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think I'm going to have enough time to, if there's any last questions, I'm going to be sticking around to answer questions. I think we'll have enough time at the end. Okay, so how do you stay connected using the social media? So you've met these people, you've got a network going. What do? Well, you got to stay connected. If you don't understand how to do this on social media, you're really missing a big bet. It's harder to do if you don't use social media. It's much easier if you do use social media. So social media is a normal part of doing business in today's world. As the chart shows, there are 4 billion people on social media worldwide. That's 1 out of every 2 people. There are 8 billion people on the planet. We're rounding up on both numbers. If you're not using social media on a regular basis or as a part of your marketing strategy, you're not going to be visible to your target market, because that's where your market is going to be. So here's some cautions. Social media is not free. You must invest time. In other words, you have to pay for it out of pocket necessarily, but you have to invest your time, and your time is worth money. You need to take courses. You need to do research. You need to post regularly to be successful. Um, just FYI, next month we're offering a course in LinkedIn B2B marketing. So you may want to sign up for that. And then social media success takes time. It took me a significant amount of time to learn how to use social media. There's no magic wand, pixie dust, or fairy godmother to help you learn social media. However, there are a lot of courses and technical support offered by the SBA and its resource partners to help you learn about how to use this powerful tool to reach your target audience. In order to become a good social media person, you need to develop a marketing strategy. That's the last part of this. And time does not permit me to go into detail on how to accomplish this, but using and posting a calendar is a key component of social media strategy, and that I will discuss later. Next slide, please. So types of social media platforms. I think all of you are pretty familiar with these or heard of these, but I'm going to try to add a little knowledge to how you think about them. I would think about LinkedIn and YouTube as B2B, business to business. LinkedIn dominates the B2B space and is an excellent platform for businesses to recruit talent. But YouTube, because of its increased use of video, is a fast-growing platform for business to post content. Now, Facebook and Instagram, which are, of course, owned by the same company, Meta, Facebook is the 800-pound gorilla in social media. Everybody across the world is using Facebook as social media, but it is primarily a B2C, business to consumer platform. And Twitter is used by everybody. The most serious users of social media use Twitter as their second platform to post their content. It's easy to use, and it's a mainstay in news media, following tweets as a part of the news coverage. I'm really amazed at the Ukrainian President Zelensky for posting multiple tweets daily on the status of the war, letting people know how he feels about it at Russia-Ukraine war. Now, they're probably, I'm not promoting him or anything else, but I'm sure there's dozens of hashtag Twitter feeds that have all different angles on the war. So I'm just using President Zelensky as an example. I'm not making a political statement. Now, Snapchat, TikTok, WhatsApp, and others are rising fast. Currently, they're niche players, but so is YouTube, and so is Instagram 5 years ago. Now they're mainstream. So, you can find stuff on what's going on in Ukraine on all of these platforms. So that's just the nature of the world today. Okay. So let me go to the last slide here and talk to you about the social media calendar. This is one part, this is a major part of developing a successful social media strategy. And to be successful, you have to stay active by planning your posts in advance. If you're not posting regularly, you're not going to be visible to your network. I suggest the following 4-step process to develop a successful social media strategy. Step 1, create a monthly template calendar. The days on the horizontal axis and the weeks on the vertical axis. Determine how often to post. You should plan to post at least once a week. So you can see there are different colored posts represent different platforms. But remember, you're posting useful, helpful information on your network. You're not advertising. You're not boasting. You're not bragging. However, if you do win an award, win in a contract, or get recognized by something, that's worthy. That's post-worthy. You're not bragging. You're letting people know what's going on in your life, and people are interested in that sort of thing. The largest post I ever got was I got 1,600 likes on a post I did on myself for having hit my 50th anniversary as a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. And that went viral. It just took off like crazy. I couldn't believe it. I had no idea anybody was even interested in such a thing. So if you choose more than one platform, and that's what the different colors on the calendar is, that's when you post. However, let's talk about step 4, which is what is it you're going to post. So using curated content along with original content is really the best way to do this. Now, curated content is reposting someone else's content. This is a fantastic way to learn how to post on a regular basis. About 10% of my content today is curated. However, when I first started off and blogging and using social media, I'd say 90 to 100% of all of my content was curated. It's just a great way in which to stick your toe in the water and figure out what you want to do. So those are my 4 tips on setting up a social media calendar, which is at the core of a social media strategy. All right, so let me go to the summary slide here. Okay, so for the last 50 minutes or so, we have talked about a number of things, and hopefully we still have a lot of time for me to stick around and answer questions for you. But we talked about a target audience, making sure that that's one of the ways you know whether or not you're in the right networking group. We talked about how you do events, how you attend events both in person and virtually. We talked about networking and your elevator pitch and what you do when you get there, and some tips and some tricks for how to get around and how to meet people, particularly if you're an introvert like I am. And for social media, we talked about the different tools for B2C versus B2B, business to consumer versus business to business. And I told you a little bit about the posting calendar, which is at the core of any successful social media marketing strategy. So let's go to the last slide, which is questions. No, I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you before we go to questions, there are 3 workshops that we're offering after this class, and here are the dates: how to prepare a short elevator pitch, how to prepare for an in-person event, and how to use social media. So it's a follow-up to what you've learned here today, and it's a deeper dive, and it's in a group setting, and you can learn a lot from each other, and I'll be happy to pass on to you some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. So let me close out now and put the question box up and see if there's any questions before I go to the very end.
Yes. What kind of networking event can be useful for someone in a sightseeing or touring business?
Sightseeing or touring business. Wow. Well, again, what kind of sightseeing, what kind of touring? Are we talking Washington, I guess you're talking Washington, D.C. monument tours? Is that what you're talking about? Or are we talking about historical sites for the African American tour? Are we talking about hosting? I mean, one of my good friends who was works in Small Business Administration came to this country, and he started a tourist business catering to Chinese who wanted to come to Washington, and he spoke Chinese and he gave tours on that. So first thing is to narrow your niche, specifically what you're talking about, okay? And the second thing is that you clearly want to join a chamber of commerce that operates in whatever geographic area you're thinking about, and then you want to make sure that you join the local chapter of whatever type of travel that you're doing, make sure you stay in network with them. Did I answer your question?
I'll check the chat to see if he responds.
Okay, I see somebody put something in the chat here. Okay.
We just have one more question left. It's from Netsanet. As a startup business, she was wondering which social media platforms are best for business professionals networking.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, that's in the
Yeah.
chat. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, thanks for the question. Great question. You can't go wrong with LinkedIn. That's not an endorsement for LinkedIn over anybody else. I know, for example, a lot of entrepreneurs use Instagram. A photographer, say a photographer. My daughter, for example, is a photographer, and she published all her work on Instagram. Why? Because people that like pictures go on Instagram, and so given that, she used that platform. So if you want to look at all her stuff, and even if you want to network with her, she's not on Facebook, she's not on LinkedIn, she's on Instagram. Having said that, if you're, I'm not exactly sure which business you're talking about. Even if you are on Instagram, being on LinkedIn is a great way to put yourself out there and let people know who you are, and what you're all about. And particularly if you're trying to scale and grow your business and add people to it. But, it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Any more questions for me, MJ? Did I answer that question, by the way?
Yes, and we've got a response, and you did answer the previous one as well.
Okay, good.
So that's all the questions we have.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, we have about 3 minutes here. Again, if you've enjoyed what you've learned here today, I want to, you can get personalized help in getting started. When you sign off, there will be an evaluation and a group counseling form. If interested, simply fill it out, and those selected will be contacted today or tomorrow. Okay? All right. So, as always, I really enjoy, as you can tell, I love talking about entrepreneurship and digital marketing. However, I think it's a privilege when I get a chance to talk about the subject to fellow entrepreneurs. I want each and every one of you to take care. May God bless you on your entrepreneurial journey. And I'm going to stick around for about 5 minutes in case there are any follow-up questions. And then I'm going to turn the camera off. Okay? All right. Take care.